FinCom, that's what the FinCom reserve is for.
Yeah. Good thing we upped it by $50,000.
Tommy Boy broke a table.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to night 2 of the budget review. And Steve, whenever you're ready.
Sure. We're going to start off tonight with the information technology budget.
27.
And we have with us behind me our IT director, Colby Cousins. The budget increase and the operating budget, I should say, page 27 in the budget booklets. It's a 9.9% increase. I would note, and as you'll see, I believe in the narrative, the increase in this budget is fully offset by an intermunicipal agreement that we entered into this year with Middleton. Colby has been instrumental in developing a regional approach to IT on the North Shore. We have 6 towns that have partnered with us for back-end service. And Middleton is paying for an FTE that is a town of Danvers employee, but is primarily focused on supporting Middleton. So the increase you're looking at of $76,000 in this budget is more than offset by the IMA that we have. That's revenue that flows through to free cash. But what you do see in the budget, you see an increase in salary and wages, which is related to a market adjustment that was made for one of our employees. The increase in the operating is a contracted help desk contract that we entered into, which offset the need for a full-time employee to do that. We now have a team doing that remotely. And I think with that, you have the budgets and we have the expert behind me. So if there are questions, Colby or I would be happy to answer those about the IT budget.
Paul?
Other than Middleton, are there other towns involved, or did I miss that somewhere?
Colby Cousins, IT Director. Yeah, there are 6 partner towns, so Middleton, Topsfield, Hamilton, Wenham, Essex, and Manchester by the Sea.
Okay, thank you very much. No more questions, sir. All set.
Mike?
No, that's good. Thank you, Colby.
Ted?
Nope, I'm good.
Aaron?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Good. Also. Okay. I'm all set.
Thank you.
Questions from the audience? Is there a motion?
Move the budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And you'll see Colby again in a couple weeks when we go through the tech warrant. Next up is the police budget. And the best dressed person in the room is approaching the microphone, Chief Jamie Lovell. I'll do the 30,000-foot view, and then we will hand it off to the chief. But really, it's a level service budget. You see a slight downtick in operating expenses. We finalized the police contract last year, so the budget that you received contains the agreement that is now in place in line with the rest of the collective bargaining agreements, which are set to expire at the end of next fiscal year. And I don't know, Jamie, if you want to add any detail, but I think as with IT, you have the narratives, and we'd be happy to take any questions that you have about the police budget.
Arthur?
No, I'm all set.
Eric?
I don't know if I saw it in there. Can you just comment on the staffing levels? I remember we had that conversation last year. It was an ongoing challenge.
So last year's staffing levels, going in July 1st, we were down 13 officers out of 47, which really impacted our operations. Since that time frame, we had 3 officers graduate in June of 2022. They completed their field training over the summertime. They are now actively on the road by themselves as patrolmen on the evening shift. About 2 months ago, Officer Thomas Mento graduated the Linfield Academy. He has now also completed his field training and also assigned to the evening shift. We had a new hire, Officer Courtney Cashman. She started April 3rd. She's 2 weeks into her 8-week field training program. She will be done towards the end of May. And we have 4 recruits graduating the academy on April 28th. So altogether, up significantly, we have 4 openings left. Technically, we have 1 patrol opening. The other 3 are supervisory openings right now, but after the summertime is over, we hope to have an assessment center, start a promotional process, started on a recruitment process, and hopefully by next July 1st, we should be in a very good place, we hope.
Thank you. And then does the budget reflect full staffing or current staffing?
It's full.
Thank you.
Wally?
It sounds like most of the staffing is sourced from new graduates. Is that fairly typical?
Yes, we tried doing a lateral transfer opening. We got no responses. Right now, it's tough. Departments are really trying hard to retain their employees. The trend right now we're starting to see is actually signing bonuses. Recently, Salisbury had $2,500 signing bonus. Malden recently advertised a $7,500 signing bonus. So you're starting to see that come into law enforcement now, where you're seeing departments offering signing bonuses. Out in California, I think a community was doing $75,000 bonus out in California. So it's becoming very competitive for employees, and, you know, we tried the lateral, and, you know, we got no responses.
That's all set for me. Thank you.
Mike?
So how many new coming on this year? Within, so we'll have 8 new patrol officers? How many of them have bachelor's degree? All of them?
Not all. Some have degrees in other concentrations. Currently, we have, out of the 3 from last June, we have 1 has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. 1 was finishing his bachelor's degree in computer science and hopes to go for his master's in criminal justice. And we have another officer who was partial way through her associate's degree. She's also in the National Guard, so she's been kind of busy doing both. Thomas Mento, I believe, has a criminal justice degree. Officer Cashman has a master's degree from ULowell. And out of our new recruits for the academy, I think 2 have degrees.
Do you have you dealt with any issues at this point with the new state body that's overseeing?
The post-commission?
Yeah.
No. You know, again, we mentioned last year through Kalia, we were kind of ahead of the game when it came to policies and procedures. We went through our first round of, you know, recertification for the first group of officers, I think it was A through I think it was. They've been recertified. The next group is this year, which I'm in that group. And then there'll be a 3rd year. That will be another group of recertified officers. Really hasn't been a huge issue yet. There's been some conflicting information from posts as far as what's reportable, what's not, what's looking for information, what they don't want. But that was just, it's more administrative at this point. It hasn't really impacted our operating.
And the Essex County District Attorney has not put out a list similar to the Middlesex or some of the other in regards to issues with officers in regards to testimony.
There is a Brady list out of Essex County.
They did do one.
Yep.
Okay.
They're, I think, probably more conservative.
Yeah.
They work through the list very thoroughly, so it is in the process, and it's constantly changing.
It's constantly, yeah. Okay. And then just, I'm sure we'll get a little bit to this with when we deal with some of the capital stuff, but where are we in terms of the electrification of our fleet?
So, we discussed this last year. If you want
I was going to suggest, before he sat down, that we turn to page 94, and if you want to take a detour to page 94, we can have a brief conversation now. There are 4 police vehicles being replaced this year. We will be introducing our first electric vehicle in the police fleet. It'll be the Lightning, the pickup truck. And I don't know, Chief, if you want to speak a little bit to that.
So this year here, we're getting 2 hybrids in this year and 2 gas cruisers, just because what was available. So there's just not a lot of inventory right now in the dealerships. We had to take what we could get to get cars this year. So we're having 1 CID car. I think it's 2 gas, 2 hybrids come in this year. Next year, we're budgeted for 2 hybrid Explorers, 1 Expedition, which would be a supervisor's car, 6-cylinder, not an 8, 6-cylinder Eco Boost engine. And then the 4th would be the Ford Lightning. We looked at a few different options. Originally, I was going to take an administrative car as a Mustang. I got the quote price. It was about $82,000 for an admin car for myself. I drive about 50 miles a week. Didn't really see the effectiveness of me buying an electric car for myself. Salem purchased a Ford Lightning pickup as a traffic vehicle, traffic enforcement. A friend of mine's the lieutenant over there. We've had it in town here a few times. We've looked at it. It's a full-size 4-door pickup. It's a lot bigger. It'll have the extended battery. It'll have all the equipment inside will be low profile. There'll be transport in the back as well. We feel we'll get a better return on our investment getting a truck versus a admin car that can be out on the road being used on patrol. Our goal to run it 2 shifts a day, hopefully days and eves, and charge it on the overnight shift. Worst case scenario, we'll do it every other shift. We'll use it a shift, charge it a shift, use it a shift, and just rotate through the rotations.
Do all 6 of our sort of management administrative members have vehicles that we provide to them, or
Yes,
for
the
work?
captains,
Captains,
myself,
lieutenants, just the captains, and you know.
captains, lieutenants, detectives have take-home vehicles. Some of the juvenile officers have take-home vehicles, but their past drop-down cruises have been dropped down over the years.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Paul?
I don't really have many, just a curiosity, we've never been able to expand the regional dispatch center, correct? I mean, is that sort of like just a dead issue at this point in time? Any interest at all anywhere?
Not really. I think we had a better chance before the rec went to the state, went from the county to the state owned.
Yeah.
And they basically said, we'll give you services for free. That kind of made it difficult for us to compete with other agencies, so.
The economics of the regional always worked. We ran into a lot of political hurdles, and what the chief is alluding to is a number of years ago we had several towns that were interested in at least having the conversation, and the state at that point basically offered free dispatch services to those communities so that they would stay with the county rec.
With that one, yeah. Okay. On a side note, I'm a member of the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee, and I want to publicly thank the chief and his staff for all the support we get from his personnel at any event we do. They're just constantly with us, and they back us up on everything, and I'm really thankful, and I know I speak for the rest of the committee. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Paul. Chief, I know certainly last year and possibly the year before, we discussed ideal staffing as opposed to current staffing, and I think the comment was made maybe by the town manager, let's worry about getting to the current staffing now, and we'll worry about ideal staffing and growing the department in the future. It's nice to see that we're getting to that point. What do you foresee the department looking like as policing is changing and evolving? What do you see the department looking like in 5 or 10 years? If you have your way.
I always like to see the department expand. I'd like to see us increase our detective division, our criminal investigation division, be able to create an actually community impact unit that could actually just focus on community-related issues. And administratively, we're starting to feel a lot of pressure to get things done. My assumption is we'll probably see body cameras in the next 2 to 3 years. That's going to be a huge burden on us to public records requests, storage of data, dividing out data. So we're going to see more administrative functions and needs for administrative functions in the department. Some can be civilian, some need to be offices. So I would like to see us get up to 50-ish or more in the next probably 5 years if possible. That would be helpful.
Great. Thank you. Questions from the audience?
Could I one,
Yeah.
and just, I know it's, and I don't know if this might be a question that would come from the audience as well, but if you could just very, very quickly sort of go through, I know that our police department is in constant contact with the schools. They have obviously a fantastic relationship with the schools on all fronts. It's something that's in the news quite a bit. Can you just let the public know what the Danvers Police Department is doing with our schools to guarantee that the kids are as safe as they possibly can be when they go off?
So this past September, Sergeant Kalala, myself, Captain Sanborn, and Mary Wormuth made a decision that we were going to meet with every single school in town. So we set up 45-minute to an hour coffees at every school in town, including St. Mary's, St. John's Prep, and the Tech. And we went to each school and actually had a sit-down conversation with each of those schools, asked what their needs were as far as training, what they need from support from us, how we can do our job better and make their lives easier. We had great conversations. Some schools that were a little hesitant in the past to kind of not work with us, but invite us into their community were very open, and we had great dialogues with them, and we're actually going in a nice direction with those schools. So we spent a lot of time doing that. We also did a public safety night where we actually invited the public to come to the middle school, and we did a conversation on our enhanced lockdown procedures, what we train the teachers, what we train the students with, how we respond. Unfortunately, we had a very small attendance. I think we had maybe 10 families the staff outweighed families. It was recorded on DCAT, and it's available if you ever want to watch it. So we did that as well. The SROs, school resource officers, continue to work with the schools through the enhanced lockdown drills. If schools have concerns about, how to barricade something, how to do something, our officers have been working with them during their curriculum days and coming into the schools and working with the teachers and trying to do some mock drills with the teachers. Mary Wormers and I probably talk 2 to 3 times a week, usually around 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So we're in constant contact about issues in town, issues in the school. If there is a national event, we try to be very conscious to have an increased presence at the schools for the next week or so, whether it's in the drop-off and during the day. We try to go into the schools as much as we can. So those are just a few of the things that we do.
Thank you.
Questions from the audience? Is there a motion?
Move the budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Next is the Public Works Tax Authority budget. You can turn to page 45 in your budget booklet. And, trash will be the main event. I will tell you it's a level service budget. We talked briefly in the overview that what really the drivers here are contractual services, which include trash and then utilities. And I would invite David Lane up to the podium. And while he's making his way up, introduce the rest of his team. We have Town Engineer Stephen King, Rob Dever, who's our Deputy Director of Operations, and behind him is Angelica Medina, who's our DPW Business Manager.
Thanks, Steve. And Mr. Chairman, before we get into trash, there was a couple things in the budget that we should talk about. Even with it's a level service budget, we have gone through everything, and you do see changes in line items for items such as the contract cleaning and the HVAC maintenance. Those will jump right out at you. As those contracts go across all the divisions, water, sewer, tax supported, all of a different piece, those changes are primarily due to getting that split right. In this case, the water and sewer divisions were paying too much, and we had to decrease theirs, and there would be an increase on these line items. I did want to bring that to your attention. You'll see it. The other big increase that we wanted to talk about very quickly is the pavement striping, 52921. That's to paint all the lines, crosswalks, the stop bars, all of that around town. Looking back over the last 2 years, we found haven't been painting all the lines every year. And that's a drop of service that we would like to stop and paint all the lines. But we found we're under budgeted to do that based on the increasing price of paint each year. So you'll see a significant increase there in that line painting, and that's so that we can get out to paint all the lines. It's done with a combination of in-house and contractors. We hire the contractors to come in and do the long lines, and some of the small lines, and we have our own staff that does a lot of the parking stalls, some of the crosswalks, some of the legends you see it. But the big increase there is so that we can get around to do all the markings. And which we used to do that every year, and then due to budgets got away from it for a few years. A couple other items that you see jumped up. We have item 53033, the inspectional services. Those are inspectional services, most of it in our buildings. You'll see elevators inspected, and then there's some work that comes with those inspections, the fire alarm systems and the fire extinguishers. And some of it goes to the state. It's required payments right to the state for their inspectors to come out, and others is to hire local inspectors. Same level of service, just increased cost. For gasoline and diesel fuel across all the town budgets, obviously always a difficult one to figure out. For this year, all the budgets across town are done based on a unit price of $3.17 for the unleaded gas and $3.81 for diesel. That was the best looking forward guess at the time. Right now, it looks like it's an okay number, and everyone realizes we do not pay the taxes on that, so we're lower than what you see at the pump. So right now, anything drastic could happen, but that's where we've set the bar right now across all the town budgets. On page 48, there's a couple other items that jump right out on the budget. Our bituminous concrete, 55301. That's unit price increases there. Same amount of hot top to patch the areas of sidewalk and road around town. But that's just the unit prices going up. In 55303, you'll see a jump in our traffic supplies. That line item primarily does the signage around town. There is an increase in that budget for an additional flasher for one of the rail trails. We've been asked to look at putting a flasher up, actually 2 spots. We put one in, but we've been requested to look at the Pickering Street crossing just before you get to Hobart Street, and also the one on Chestnut. Chestnut doesn't get a lot of traffic, but the rail trail's kind of hidden back there. So we've put $6,000 in to do a flasher at one of those 2 locations here, and we'll work with the rail trail and the a traffic advisory committee on putting those in. Staffing stays the same, other than you'll see a change at top with the part-time salary. That was last year. We had proposed taking 2 part-time jobs and making it into a floater position, if you recall. And that, we have that floater position on board that works for different divisions based on different time of year, wherever the need is. And that's been a drop in part-time due to that. So, Mr. Chairman, if we wanted to take any other questions on the whole budget before we get into trash, or would you like me to jump right into refuse and recycling?
Any committee members have any general questions before we jump into trash? No. Let's jump right into trash.
Big jump. What we did last fall in preparing for this budget, we went out and got the copies of contracts in all the towns around us to find out what towns were doing, what they were paying for their trash collection. We had been told we had an old contract. We knew we were paying less than anyone around. We appreciated that while it was here. We knew that the markets had changed. When we talked to the area towns and we talked to the haulers initially, we made phone calls and found out the industry is going to automatic collection. The insurance carriers, the companies do not want the employees on the back of the truck picking up refuse anymore or recycling. So everyone, it was the strong recommendation and almost direction to us, go to automatic collection where recycling trash would each have a vehicle that's equipped with an arm that reaches out over the side of the truck and picks up the barrel and dumps it in the top of the truck. There's a camera on the truck. It watches what's dumped, and it's an automatic collection process. It's something that I saw out in the Midwest years ago and never thought it would happen in New England, and it's here. It's actually working in other towns very similar to Danvers, and it's working successfully. When you get automatic collection, that requires a standardized heavy-duty barrel. So that's a barrel for trash and a barrel for recycling. We found that the barrels do have a long lifespan. Communities around us are going into their 3rd 5-year contract with the same barrels. Obviously, maintained with wheels and covers on them. Most of the towns had expected a 10-year life out of them. However, towns are going into their 3rd contract with the same barrels. That's surprising to us that they last that long. So once we put that together, what we did is put together a request for, we put together budget numbers that you see in the budget here based on an average of what other towns are paying out there. Some are older contracts, some were new contracts. We took a number and put it in the middle and put it in the budget here. And then we went out for proposals to area companies. We received 4 proposals from 4 different hauling companies in this area. All of the proposals were above our budget. We met with each one of them to talk about what are ways that we can adjust what we did, or how's our level of service, or how can we make this more economical. Each one of them had ideas. We revised what we asked for, went back out again, asked for another prices. They were still high. We tweaked it one more time, went out for a 3rd time to those same 4 companies and got 4 more prices. And we ended up making a strategic decision along the way. The biggest cost-saving item, I mean, we were like almost double the budget at first. We really had to come down. The biggest cost-saving items we found was to go to every other week recycling. And it's something that Danvers used to have. We got away from it when we went to mandatory recycling, and we actually saved money on that year, went there. But now, the haulers all said, we're gonna save a lot of money. Other towns have a big barrel that goes out there that holds the material for 2 weeks. We talked to other towns that are doing it, and it's working. And we found the numbers saved approximately $220,000 a year if we went to every other week recycling. So we're looking at $1 million savings over the life of this contract. So that brought us to recommend to the manager that we look at doing every other week recycling, keep the trash the same as it is, however, use it with an automatic bin, with one bin, that 164-gallon bin. We were able to get refuse collection the same as, leaf collection, the same as we have now. That would be done with those 13 collections by a separate truck taken to a composting area. The other big difference with this contract is now we have to pay for recycling processing. So recycling is collected, taken to a processing location where you have to pay a tipping fee for that. The number for that process was actually higher than we expected. It was higher than a lot of other towns that had contracts 3 or 4 years ago had found. However, there's only 2 or 3 locations that can do recycling processing. We have to pay for that. And then with recycling, there is revenue sometimes for that material. Sometimes it's positive revenue, sometimes it's negative, depending on the markets for the recycling. So we also have to have a sharing agreement with the collection company, where we share in the profits, and unfortunately, we take, if there's a losing market, we take the most of that cost. So if, for example, a mixed paper, the markets were flooded, and the mixed paper went into a minus $5 a ton, we would have to pay a minus $5 a ton on top of our processing fee. And that's the recycling market right now. With the bi-weekly recycling, we're able to bring the numbers in right to where the budget is before you tonight. That was the only way we could do it. The other services were able to keep the same, except that it's automatic collection. We did look into the issue of the carts, the automatic barrels. We were skeptical of that, went to other towns to look at how they were working, and we were surprised at what we saw when we drove streets, and there was neat bins lined up. People just had their refuse and recycling in the bin with the cover shut, sitting right at their house, and it was just neat and clean. And the barrels weren't being blown around in the wind. They were just set back at the curb. No one was throwing barrels around. It just was neat and clean and efficient. And we were surprised, and the people that we talked to thought it worked great. There is a cost to the bins. We have 7,700 households in Danvers, so each household would need a recycle bin and a trash bin, and perhaps even want to purchase a second trash bin. So they need to be standardized. They need to be the rugged, same model so that they last. So what we proposed was for the town to go out and the town to purchase these up front. We go out and get bids on them, purchase them up front, have them delivered to each home, and then we would have the contractor maintain those for the life of the contract. That seemed to be the standard out in the industry, how successful towns were doing it. There's a number of different models that they do, but that seemed to be the standard and the one that best fit the program we were trying to do. Perhaps I should stop and take questions, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if I'm confusing people or making a clear picture here.
I think it's a pretty clear picture, but we'll take some questions now. Arthur?
So when you looked at, so actually, what percentage of the towns are doing automated collection right now, in our area?
So in our area, half. There's the town of Reading right now has an older contract. They did 4 years ago. They signed a 10-year contract. They're in a manual collection mode right now, and they're in a transition. They're going to shift to a quasi-manual. They're going to issue the barrels to the big barrels to the town, and then retrofit the trucks so that they can collect them. So they're in a manual, they're gonna switch. Salem is automatic. Beverly is in a manual mode right now. Wilmington, fully automatic. So Salem's automatic, Wilmington's automatic. Reading is manual switching.
Did you look, yeah, I'm sure you did, but when you looked into the towns that are doing the automated, what we're talking about now, what types of problems do they have? Do they have problems with people not lining the buckets up correctly? Do they have problems when there's snow on the ground and they can't figure out where to put them? Do they have problems with people just putting them not in the right spots? I mean, what do you see as far as issues as far as the other towns?
When we talked to people, they reported, well, first they wanted to make sure that the big bins could fit in wherever they put the trash cans. They were concerned about the size of them. They had to work how they fit those in at their homes. They had to work at that. That was probably the biggest problem we saw. People out there that did this report to us they had less problems with these big bins than they did with their old bins. Trying to put the old ones on a snowbank or trying to put them, they would just roll them out into the plowed area and do it. Each town suggested they had people go out and get their community ready to do it, to good direction to the people, how to roll them out there, when to roll them out.
You're going to have class?
Well, I don't know if we need
We're gonna
class.
have trash
but-
class?
Trash class, well, we're going to help Mr. Bradstreet with his, but it's,
I don't think there's the first time people think about every other week, they have, I've talked to a couple people, and the first response is like, this is going to be, but those buckets are big. I don't think that's an issue, so I don't think that's going to be a problem once everybody realizes what it's going to be. What do they cost? What is the cost of if somebody wants to buy an extra one or a second one, what do they cost?
so the smaller 64-gallon for the refuse is $59, and the recycle one is $61.
Okay, all right.
Just, that's the unit cost.
Unit cost.
We would still be working out if a family wanted to buy a second container, there would also be the collection fee associated with that.
Okay.
So we haven't priced that out
Because
yet.
I assume that a lot of people I don't think they may need a second recycling container, but I think a lot of people are gonna need a second, regular trash container. I mean, if you drive up and down the streets, there's lots of trash out there. So I just think that's probably, people are gonna need a second one, I think.
Should we roll one out?
Yeah.
Is that the,
Yeah, do you have one?
It'll
Yeah.
help.
Say, you have to have an
Just-
image or something, yeah.
Just
Yeah,
to
those
jump
are
in.
those
they
two
hit them
there,
in the
right?
corner on me.
But just to jump in mathematically, 64 gallons, right now we can put out 3 45s.
Yep,
So that's roughly almost exactly 2x,
yep.
right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do that, the three of
I
them.
know my family
Yeah.
does.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
There we go.
Still out.
That's huge.
We've seen them, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think anybody's gonna have a problem with recycling, unless they're doing something really unusual.
Gonna break up the boxes. That's
So,
it.
so
I-
that's
can
what
I
we've
actually
heard, is that you
interject
need
on
to
that?
break up the boxes, and we'd plan to have a cardboard drop-off.
Okay.
So the people had a whole ton of boxes, and
we go.
we need a cardboard drop-off. That's what's been recommended to us.
Okay. And, I mean, I like the idea of the automated, but is it significant? I assume you still can contract for manual?
So I had, of the 4 contractors, at first they all said, yeah, no, we're not gonna submit on that. But a couple of them probably would submit for a price.
Okay, is it more expensive?
More expensive.
Okay, all right. So this makes sense all around then?
Yep.
All right. Thanks, that's all, Mr. Chairman.
So as a follow-up, the visuals, I think that was a setup to have the visuals right there for us. My questions are all about I was looking to see if there was an additional line for marketing, communications, or education, because I would imagine that's the place where we will run into difficulty. It's with why? Why are you changing? Why are you forcing me to pay or will do different, et cetera? Those questions come up even after a good campaign, but we've been talking about this for a year, and I don't think the average resident is paying attention to the rising costs of trash and would care, except that we're going to change something on them and make changes in their life. So I'm really interested in how we get the whys and the how-tos out to the populace.
So right now, we're lucky. We have a very good recycling coordinator who's a staff person with DPW. A third of her job is doing solid waste coordination. She's an excellent communicator and excellent at audiovisual and works very well with the assistant town manager on getting our messages out. She has worked with another community very successfully on their changes to a program, has experience with it, is ready to go.
Thank you.
Can I just, I forgot, same truck, still 2 trucks, right? Still one for recycling and one for trash?
Correct.
Okay.
So with this, when we go to every other week recycling, we go from what was a 4-truck town to a 3-truck town. So it'll be 2 trucks picking up refuse every day, 1 truck picking up recycling.
Okay, thanks.
What will you do with the stuff that actually can't get broken down and get into the barrel? Like if somebody put a chair out?
So we would keep our bulky item program the same. So you put the the stickers on that. You buy the
So you run another truck around with that as well?
That's a separate truck doing that. And I should mention one change. When we looked at trying to make the program more economical, right now, anybody can call up if your collection day is on a Thursday. You can have that bulky item picked up on Thursday or whatever your day is. We have to change the bulky program so that we're gonna be picking up bulky items 1 day a week. So no matter where you live in town, if you have that bulky item that won't fit in that and you purchase a sticker, you call us and we're gonna pick it up on that one set day. Say we set Tuesday as the bulky item day, and we're gonna send that 1 truck that Mr. Typerd mentions around to the whole town to get those. We'll give them the route right on a spreadsheet and they'll go right around, pick those things up. Right now, we're doing the stickers for $10 and $20. The mattresses are a different price. We do need to look at those prices. We've gotten look out there in the market, and we're probably low on some things. I need to work with the town manager and see where do we want to set those sticker prices. We haven't changed them in a long time, but especially with the TVs, anything with a cathode ray tube, our $20 sticker is very low on that. It costs more to get rid of it than that. So we'll do that. So 1 day a week.
And also, you're on your line items, we have a trash collection fee, but we don't have a recycling pickup collection fee.
So recycling is just called recycling. It's 529927 at the bottom of page 46.
Yeah, recycling, but no fee. Refuse collection, refuse disposal. So it's all one. Go to the sorting center as
Correct.
part of that fee?
Correct, yep, all together.
Thank you.
Just a couple questions. So I'm looking at the size for a family of 4 or larger. I think that's great. For elderly people, I live in a neighborhood that's a lot of original owners. I'm used to my elderly neighbor taking her small little bin and her small little recycling out on her own. So just thinking about that for older residents, something to think about if we're able to offer a different size for them. Additionally, you mentioned that there's a camera that will be on the automated truck. What's the purpose of the camera?
So the camera is first, when they get the bin up to the top of the cycle and the lid pops open, they can actually look into the barrel. And that gives the driver the driver time to actually look, take a glance and make sure it's not full of something that's totally unacceptable.
Okay.
Then there's a second camera that watches it dump down in. The driver can record that picture with the address, send it to our coordinator to know, hey, stuff went in the truck that wasn't allowed, we can follow up with that resident for next time.
Got it. And then existing containers at residence, what are you gonna do with those? Are you gonna offer citizens a drop-off, an exchange, a return? Maybe if they drop off 10 containers, they can get a discount on a second bin for their house, that we could recycle those types of items.
So we know we need to have a drop-off if people want to dispose of them. And I know my staff is already coming up with a program to advertise ways you could donate them or find uses for them. That's in progress. I had not thought about the idea of if you need another can, you could donate them towards that. We'll have to give that some thought.
Okay, thank you.
Ted?
So a couple questions. So the cost per unit is $59 and $61, and that's of the I think you said.
That's the bins, correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's the cost to buy a bin. And I believe we're gonna have them delivered to the residences. They've delivered them, they have a take track, there's a serial number assigned to each household, do that, and there's a couple $1 fee for that also.
Okay.
Then, I think you sort of touched on it, so cardboard, so I guess I would say we have essentially this service at a camp that we have. Our cans are quite old now, the biggest damage has been from raccoons on the lids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty gross, but, the cardboard is an issue, because it doesn't, you gotta you basically have to chip it up to get it in the box and have room for other stuff, so there won't be anybody picking up cardboard on the curb anymore.
Not on the curb.
Okay.
Our plan would be to have a drop-off. People had a lot of
So
cardboard.
that is another small change in service level.
Absolutely.
Yep, okay. And recycling, is that single stream now?
Oh, yes, single
We
stream,
don't have to sort it, just
Yep.
cans, paper, all go in one can,
single stream.
okay? And then, I know you talked about the potential extra fee for extra cans for extra pickup. I would just, not that I disagree with that or agree with that, I would just highlight that that's, to many households, a change in service level too.
Yeah.
If you're using your full 3-can, 45-gallon allotment right now. So, all that said, like, I would say that you've been quite clear about this for almost as long as I've been on this committee, that this was coming. And I trust that you've negotiated the best deal for us. I do have a question, though. Have you guys surveyed other towns on their trash fee policies?
Yeah,
And which towns absorb it in the levy and which don't?
we have, and we found, actually, the state was able to give us some records on that also, and we found that across the state, right now, 85 communities across the state have some sort of trash fee, and they are from $50 a year to $500. So right around here, right next door, the city of Beverly has a $100 trash fee, charge us $25 a quarter, which is probably about half the cost, and it's about $200 a household probably, and so they charge about half, and City of Salem also has a fee.
Okay. So, at the risk of taking this to a more strategic, high-level discussion before everybody else has specific questions about the policy, basically, where I sit right now, it looks like we have A+ trash service in Danvers, and we're stretching our levy limit to maintain that as A+ as we possibly can, as measured by service intensity and costs. It's basically free if you live here and you pay your taxes. And I've been on, like, in this, Dave, like, you're sort of like just caught in the crossfire here, to be really honest
It's
with
okay.
you.
It's my year.
You're an innocent bystander. I've watched us jump through all kinds of hoops in the last 5 years. To try and come up with creative ways to cover cost increases for a variety of different departments. Like we did, we renegotiated our healthcare with our employees to to create essentially a one-time catch-up in cost avoidance and savings. On the buildings, the Big Smith School and the Danvers High projects, instead of passing a debt exclusion to finance the projects with shorter-term debt with lower interest rates, we decided to level fund them, which creates more interest because we're paying them back over longer periods of time, and higher interest rates because long-term interest rates tend to be higher than short-term interest rates. So that's another day that we opted to prolong pain. This year, I think we're maxing out our non-tax revenue assumptions, which is not what we've done in the past. We've used, and essentially what we anticipate to be additional revenues there to cover, like, snow collection. I think we did one year when that was a surprise. That helped cover that. And in other years, it's just created a strong free cash flow position, or free cash position for us at the end of the year to start the next year with. So now we're adjusting that levy for, maybe not directly for this, but it's all part of the same soup. We're doing that this year. Then we've gone down a list of things that we've refused to ration. For starters, since I've been here, the Essex Tech budget has grown double digits every single year. It's absorbed a good portion of the tax revenue increases, a material percentage of the tax revenue increases in the town. Last year, we made an attempt to address it. At town meeting, we agreed to form a study committee to further study it. come up with a set of facts that we all agreed on, and propose solutions on a way to manage that growth in the context of our budget. A year later, that committee hasn't met a single time. Zero. We've invested millions and millions of dollars in our schools, millions. But we refuse to staff the schools without taking staff from other schools. Our staffing levels, we have a brand-new elementary school. Our staffing levels at the elementary school level are no different than they were 10 years ago. They're arguably down. If anything, they're flat. We hear every single year about the problems we're having with special education costs and kids having to go out of district because we can't meet their needs. But every single year, we continue to fill our kindergarten classes with 20-plus kids. And that trend goes all the way through elementary school. There's ample research that kids learn best in elementary school in classrooms of 16 or less. It's not really disputable. We've built the buildings, the hard stuff. We're literally on the 5-yard line as a town. All we need to do is come up with a little extra money to hire a few extra teachers, target some support in special ed, and the odds are we're going to materially improve the performance of our school district. We come in here, and this budget comes in with an $800,000 increase that we knew that beyond your control, and we jump through hoops to accommodate the $800,000. We come in here with Essex Tech. It grows by $500,000 or whatever the number is. We jump up through hoops. We make it work. But our school district that comes in with a $45 million budget or a $48 million budget that needs $700,000 more to get things across the finish line. After we've invested literally what, Rodney, what's our debt on the high school in this middle school right now? Tens of millions of dollars. Like 50, $70 million. But we won't reach in our pocket and come up with $700,000 more to hire like 6 more teachers. It's exasperating. In our own district, we charge $160,000 in fees to Danvers school students for activities. Yet, when we send the check to Essex Tech for our kids to go there, Mike, was it $100?
Zero.
Yet, they don't pay any fees. Like, we freak out if somebody has to buy a $50 trash can, but if a kid wants to play football at Danvers High, get a paper out, buddy. Like, that's the attitude the town takes. So down the road, next year, we're losing funding in the district of, I don't know, $500,000 or $700,000 NESSER funding, or ESSER, right? Those dollars go away, right? Is that correct, Steve? Or roughly correct? So I already know the narrative next year. The narrative is going to be, hey, we've sort of gotten the special ed under control. Everything else is level spend, but our ESSER fund is gone. So now we can't do anything else for another year because we have to come up and cover that shortfall. And you know what? We'll just sit here and be like, okay, cool. We won't reach in our wallets to come up with that funding, but we will for trash cans. And also, we have to renegotiate our teachers' contracts next year. We all go to the grocery store. Cost of living isn't 2%, not this time, and that we're up against it. And our job as a finance committee is sometimes to make sure that sound decisions that people make in separate departments are in synchrony with one another and complement each other. And I think that for too long in this town, the left hand has been doing one thing, the right hand has been doing another, and it's not necessarily any individual's fault, but I think I've had enough and I'm ready to hit the circuit breaker. Like, I don't think I can support coming up with $800,000 for this, $900,000 for trash cans, and tell the schools to wait another year. That's where and again, I apologize. You
Not
had
at
to
all.
be the bystander.
Thanks, Ted. Mike?
What percentage of our residents do not get trash pickup from the town because they're in condominiums or other?
It's a small percentage. So we have 7,700 homes that we're doing the collection from. I believe the condo, it's less than 1,000 units. That's the condo. I'd have to look up that exact number and get back to you on that. But there is hundreds
Probably
of units that are condos.
Well, so probably 14% of our residents in town already pay for trash pickup as part of
Yeah,
their,
probably, yeah, could be, yeah.
yeah, as part of their
Tens, but yeah.
condominium dues or fees or whatever they, what is, so I appreciate both Beverly and Salem in regards to the experience with both Beverly and Salem, but they're not, you know, what I really want to see is I really want to see like communities and how they deal with this. Wilmington is a really interesting one because I think Wilmington is absolutely a like community. It definitely would be interesting to look at a dozen, and I think we've done this in the past in some comparisons where we've basically found those 15 very similar communities to Danvers and looked at how they handle these particular issues across the board in regards to both the type of pickup they got, the type of services that they have. Is there a cost? You know, I know that, you know, one of the, obviously, we're foreclosed at this point, and I appreciate why we went the direction we went with the more automated, but obviously one of the primary ways that people charge for trash pickup is through bag purchases, and obviously that's not an option at this point to do a bag purchase. I always felt the bag purchase was the fairest, because then when Ted's family and their 36 bags of rubbish, you know, it doesn't get charged the same as, you know, the Wilsons across the street from me who literally put out one small bag every week. But I think that it is. I agree with Ted. It's very hard to sit here and to see us have no problem, in essence, expending $1 million to buy barrels for our residents, trash barrels for the residents. I also appreciate the fact that's a one-time thing. So, and we're going to discuss that obviously as a warrant article later, and so I don't want to get too in depth with it so that we're just repeating things in 2 weeks. But, you know, that's is one of the most substantial single items that we've paid for of that sort in my memory in regards to this, for a tangible item that we are giving to, basically giving something to residents that right now residents buy on their own. Everyone buys their own rubbish barrels right now. We're actually doing something for residents that they do they're getting something extra from us going forward that they don't get right now in some respects. And then, you know, now is it, the contract is for 5 years?
Correct.
Is it only an 850, is it an escalating cost over the course of the 5 years, so that next year we will anticipate the contract to be the exact, we have,
CPI each year.
Ooh, that's risk,
so we're talking about a 10%, we're talking about an additional $80,000 next year at least.
well, no, CPI,
No.
well, CPI is running what, 5 right now?
Yeah,
6?
5.
5,
But
6.
there's risk to both,
Right.
there's risk to both directions.
There's right, risk both ways.
Yeah. Well, does it, are we allowed to go down?
Oh, yeah.
We do, okay.
So it's not fixed.
Correct. It's a set first-year price with CPI for the additional years. 5 years, yep. And just, Mr. Lander, let me just talk, other than the money, as far as the comparisons, 2 different things we'd like to talk about is the towns right around us and then other towns that are comparable to us. When we did the comparisons, the ones that are like us that we went out and researched was the Reading, Burlington, Wakefield, Wilmington. Billerica's a lot bigger than us. Andover is a bit different but
Yeah.
those are the ones that we found that we matched up with and really tried to compare apples to apples with.
No, do they charge?
No.
None of those charge at this point. Where are they in terms of their contracts?
The newest contract is the Wilmington one, fully automatic contract,
Yep.
just like this. Burlington has been automatic. They're on their second 5-year contract with the automatic collection. Wakefield is in that transitional stage. They had a contract with the old JRM like we did, and so they're in negotiations with their hauler right now, even though they have 4 years left on their contract. They did a 10-year contract originally, like we had.
I would like to be able to vote against this. The truth is, though, is that at this point, where we're at in regards to this particular discussion, it would be impractical to be able to do that and be able to piece together the budget going forward. Quite frankly, it's that substantial a piece. I do believe that the time has come in regards to this particular issue going forward, that we hit the red button. We haven't done it for a while, and we have the chair of the Finance Committee, the chair of the Select Board, and the chair of the School Committee meet to discuss this particular issue going forward, so that over the course of the summer going into next year, we can have a plan as to whether or not we can afford to continue to carry this expense within our tax levy. They may come back and say that they want to, that we have to do that, but I think I think the days of just us, quite frankly, being afraid to do the right thing financially in this town and to continue down a somewhat spiral downward. I mean, he has a right to be upset. We walked away from last night, folks. We spend less money per pupil on our kids this year than we did last year. What else in your life do you spend less money on this year than you did last year? I got one thing you do. Apparently, it's the kids in the Danvers school system. So we need to address this. Again, it can't be done now. I agree. This has nothing to do with you, Dave, personally. You did a great job negotiating this. We love you. Thank you so much. But this is, as you said, this is higher end stuff, and the time has come to stop. People are going to have to be willing to do it. You sit up here, you look down on people. That carries responsibilities with it. This board has carried that responsibility, quite frankly, in a number of areas for the last 5 years. And the time has come for other boards to step up and to understand that it's critical for us to start making some tough choices as we go forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Paul?
Well. So we give the trash cans to all the households. When in the years past, they had to purchase their own. Not a bad deal. And yet we won't charge them $100 a year because we're afraid we're going to have maybe the pitchforks come out or something. I agree with these two guys and anybody else on the board. I don't see how you spend $800,000 to $900,000 purchasing those. I'm all for it. I mean, I'd go out and buy my own. That's it. And you could charge me $100 too on top of it because we're getting good service. Try it for a week or two without trash pickup. Go to New York City. Try Paris. See what happens. The stench will get you. And we know this has been coming for a long, long time. And it really scares me now that I just found out that maybe this could go up or down over a year. And the other thing is, are we going to continue buying trash cans for people for the next contract, the contract after that, or the trash can breaks down and it's you got to bring a new one in? So I know it's not you, Dave. I'm honest. I mean, I know this is a well-prepared budget, believe me, and there's other questions I might have, but after hearing the board, the members, They're right. They're right. And yet we can't staff the schools properly? We got an elementary school is built for 452 children. We can't get 3 more teachers, 4 more teachers. People don't want to move over, they don't want to cross the line,
They're not allowed.
yeah, it's just, come on, let's go. Okay, I've had it, that's it, I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, I got one other question, but we could,
Go ahead.
well, it's not trash, it's not trash, no, it's not trash, so I'll hold on.
Well, if it's relevant, let's.
No, it
get-
isn't, it
okay.
isn't, it isn't.
Did you have something, Eric?
Go ahead.
So if,
Go ahead.
so your contract is signed?
No.
No?
No, we have a letter of understanding. We don't have a signed contract yet.
Will it be signed by the end of June?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yep.
So by July 1st, we're going this direction whether we like it or not.
That's
Yes.
not, it's not my ability to say that. That's the direction we're heading. So obviously, there's a lot of people higher than me in this town, but that's the direction we're heading. And we have,
Oh, the
we have a
other contract is
contractor,
up,
we have,
We
a
don't
we have a
have a
contractor
contract
ready
on
to
the
go
top.
July 1. Should we sign that contract?
And when we asked the question about extending at the same very
Yes.
attractive rates we've had for 2 decades, the answer was a hard no.
Yeah,
We did ask, though.
it was worse than that, but.
The distribution of the barrels will be by,
By the company that delivers them. They'll be delivered right here. We'll give them spreadsheets. They'll deliver them right off the truck to the houses.
okay.
Just one more question. You mentioned that the contract would maintain the barrel for the life of it. What does that mean? Can residents replace it? Do they repair it? What does that mean?
We would repair the wheels. The contract would put, if the cover was broken, if the pins came out, if a wheel fell off, the contract would replace those.
Okay.
And how? Excuse me.
Yep.
What's that?
That weekly when it's broken, once a month, they'll come around to your house?
Yeah, no,
and
that
fix
week.
it?
We would expect that week. And obviously, they could get behind a little bit, but we'd be following right up on them with, to give them the list of broken pieces and keep
I'm
them right out
assuming
there.
it's part of the contract.
Yep. And they're doing that in other towns. It seems to be working.
It's like they have a guy going out and
Yeah.
behind the trucks, basically, and fixing things. Not probably not that.
It probably would be similar to the bulky thing. He'd be here 1 day a week. He's probably in another town on Thursday, comes here Friday, or comes here Tuesday.
Excuse me, he or she.
He or she, thank you. Yep. He, she, whoever, a person.
So when we think about not charging charging residents for their barrel, can't we position it that there's an ROI in them buying their barrel, that they'll likely have 0 cost after like however many years that they use the barrel? I mean, that could be in some of the marketing that goes out to the residents.
So, say that,
So if we choose to charge residents for the barrels,
Yep.
at a certain point, how long will these barrels last them?
Oh.
Right? How long will they maintain them? They'll probably pay off in a certain amount of years. We should include that in marketing if we do change that approach.
sure, if we were looking to get someone to buy it, we're talking a $60 or two $60 bins.
People are we're thinking residents will complain if we impose it on them, so to kind of fight back on that complaint.
Yeah,
it's
so we
just a
could look
thought.
at doing it over the 5-year life, even though we're planning to get
Yeah.
2 contracts out of those barrels.
Okay.
So definitely, we're planning to get 10 years out of the barrels.
Mr. Chair, what are options for motions?
We
We can pass it.
Well, we're in our conversation right now. There'll be an opportunity for the public to speak. Well, we can approve any number that we would like to move forward as the main motion before the town meeting for the, we're talking about specifically the tax-supported public works budget. Now, if you were thinking specifically of, for example, the barrel issue,
I know that's a separate, that's a
that would be a
separate
warrant
line. Yep,
article that we would
understood.
discuss in a couple of weeks.
Okay, yeah.
Clarify that part that you just said, the barrel.
The barrel piece it will be handled as a warrant issue, it's a warrant article that we'll be addressing when we meet again.
On how the barrel gets bought?
Yes. Is that correct?
I was thinking about the first question. I missed
Okay.
your answer.
Yes, it's a warrant article to
Yes.
propose,
Yes.
the,
As
the purchase
to how
of
it's
them all.
how they're acquired.
The recommendation, the draft warrant, the warrant that the select board approved includes a recommendation that we use $980,000 in free cash to fund
Yeah.
the purchase of the barrels. and the contract that we've been talking about tonight is part of the tax levy, the 77%.
I guess if I could, Mr. Chair, let's just, for the sake of argument, I want to make this point, this is just for the sake of argument, that this board certainly, we have no authority to do anything. Obviously, we make recommendations, wink, wink. But we could certainly make a recommendation to town meeting not to include this money. That doesn't make any sense. We need, as I think as
need a
Wally
track,
was intimating, we need to appropriate this money.
Yeah.
The question isn't necessarily the appropriation of the amount. The question is how does it get funded? And I don't believe the town meeting, at the annual town meeting, would have the authority to be able to dramatically change that formula. I think that would be an individualized process that would require both the select board's involvement, as well as obviously, probably eventually the approval of town meeting. And that's why I'd said that I think that it unfortunately is not something that we're in a position to be able to probably do anything about for this current fiscal year. But I do believe, as I said, that there is the possibility to look at this, and that we should look at this, and that would require, I believe, the use of the gang of three, or whatever we call it, to begin the process. So,
And just as a point of clarification, we don't have, I believe the last time this issue came up was 2008. David was saying, around the recession.
Well, so I've had two very frank discussions about trash fees with the select board in this town. One was 2008, then again in 2013, I believe it was, right before Steve
But
came.
the point of clarification would be, the approval process for that is unclear at this point. We'd probably have Dave DeLuca weigh in on whether it would be votes of the select board, authorizing the town manager, whether it would flow through town meeting. I think we're unclear on that. That's something we'd have to explore at some point.
Yeah. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Paul?
In addition to the trash barrel expense, what would we, down the road, what would be the steps that would have to be discussed to actually have a trash fee established in the town? Well, for instance, I think you said Beverly was $100 a year?
Correct, Beverly has one, and so the town manager just mentioned that he would need to look into the exact mechanism from that, but the select board would definitely be involved in that decision and that discussion, like they have been in the past doing that, because it would be that, but obviously the town manager and select board would have to weigh in and have town council involved on just the mechanism, how to get it in.
Right, because I'm not looking at this thing half full, I'm looking at it as it half empty, simply because if the year-to-year contract can go up and down, I don't see light at the end of the tunnel in regards to disposal of trash nationally and internationally, aside from town, state, or whatever, and recyclables. I think that's probably been one of the great hoaxes of all time, what we're really doing with recyclables. To get them out of town, we get them off our street, but where do they go? You know? So, again, when you look at the fee that could or could not be imposed or would not be imposed on each household, or however you do it, there has to be some way to look at this and really look at it in a forward manner, because we're just not gonna solve it,
it's not going to get cheaper.
and it's never gonna, I don't even think it's gonna get cheaper. I think that, you're right. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Paul,
for
I
me.
think in answer, I think there's a question. I think in answer to the question I thought I heard, within the budget book, we have 3 line items that are related to trash and recycling. We have the refuse collection, which is the contract we're talking about. We have refuse disposal, which is the operation of the transfer station, and then we have the recycling. And the combined total of those is $2.25 million. Divided by 8,000, which is roughly the number of residents in town, the cost in the tax levy is about $210.87 per household. David mentioned that in Beverly, it's a flat $100 tax or trash fee, which he thinks is roughly half of the cost of the program. And then across the state, those fees range from $50 to $500 a year. So the point I think you're making is that the costs fluctuate. But my sense in listening to Dave and knowing what happens in Beverly is that towns and cities choose a fixed fee, which covers some portion of the cost, and would review and monitor that like we would any other fee that is part of the town's, whether it's a building permit fee or a bulky waste sticker or things like that. So, but that's a very complicated question, I think.
But we would have to establish a fee at some point if we did that, and then you work off those figures, I would imagine.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
When do we have to have a motion on this decided by?
Town meeting is the third Monday in May at 7:30 PM.
Practically speaking, given the
Tonight.
current, what we have, but we have other,
We don't need to have it done tonight.
You have several more meetings coming.
Right.
We have one more budget meeting tomorrow night, and then we have two warrant review meetings. It could complicate the production of materials for town meeting in theory, but we will have more meetings then.
Yeah, we certainly don't need to make the decision tonight.
You talking about
On this particular budget, passing this budget.
passing this budget?
Yes.
Okay, not making any amendments or anything like that, just.
Right, we could table it
table
to
it.
tomorrow and, or until, a week from Monday, or when we reassemble.
For
This-
warrant, we could do it during warrant.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I move that we table, well, I think.
Well,
want
we need to
to-
have some citizens' comments
Yeah, we
first,
have
too.
to
We're not ready
citizens-
for a motion yet, but,
okay, yeah, let's, everybody talk.
I haven't had a chance to comment. So you're gonna wait a little longer.
10-minute break.
I agree with Ted and I agree with Mike, and that really makes me crazy. But you're absolutely right. We are. I like the analogy of, we're getting the schools 95% of the way there, and not getting them over the finish line by making choices like this. And maybe we do need to sit back and take the 30,000-foot view of what really is best for the town, and maybe we do need to think more about this. And to Mike's point, I'm not sure at this point, at this late point in the game, and one of the problems with our schedule is, of course, we meet late in the game, how we can influence the decision at this point. I'm not sure about the answer, but I certainly share your frustration and your support. So thank you for making those comments. I think they were heartfelt and important to be heard. And you certainly, from the sense of what I'm hearing, to quote Dan Toomey, who was quoted last night, you can count to 5, and it seems like you certainly have the majority of the support of this board right now. So thank you for sharing your comments. And with that,
Can I just add one thing?
Go ahead,
I agree with everybody, but I also agree with Mike when he says that I don't know that we can do anything
That's what I
this
mean,
year, right? So, but what we should be doing is kind of signaling that it's got to change for next year, right? There needs to be some money paid, I think, that's what I think. But I don't think we can do anything but pass this year. We don't have to do it tonight, but I don't see an alternative because kind of we got to have trash pickup on July 1st.
oh, absolutely.
And I don't see how you can go back and kind of reinstitute anything this year. So that's just my thought.
I would say this, that again, I think people I certainly have to understand that supporting this expenditure, which is reasonable, which was negotiated well, which ultimately ends up being, frankly, far less money than we would have been on the hook for had our negotiators done a lesser job, is entirely different than how we fund it. The funding piece of it has to start with the select board. The select board needs to take a stand on this. And they have to start, if the decision is, we're not going to look at fees, we're not going to look to try to cover some of this cost in a different way than fully through the tax levy, then they should go on the record that that's the case. And that certainly can be done at their next meeting. And that certainly can be done in concert as this process moves up towards town meeting. And it would be potentially plausible that we could approve this at town meeting and that the funding portion of this could be approved using some sort of fee. Again, not knowing how the timing works from that, but the point is that this board, despite, I think, giving a clear indication to folks in the audience and on the television as to what we believe makes good sense. Again, we may very well not be involved with this process at all after ultimately we take our vote with it. But I think that it needs to be done, and it needs to begin with the select board.
Yep.
I'd say two things. I was told last year we'd have a committee to study things. We haven't met. It's 12 months later. So I'm kind of done having people try and defuse the bomb when it's vote time and then hope that everybody forgets it later on and life goes on. The second thing, essentially what I'm hearing is we have no choice but to vote recommend to pass this, which,
Well, we have a choice, but.
right, in its truest sense, means we don't have a recommendation at all. If we're truly a recommending body, then we should recommend what we think, and the town meeting should know where we stand, just like you said about the select board.
We are an advisory board, correct? Well, let's give them some advice. Really.
I think the last time the selectmen took some advice of ours, they didn't like it very much.
Oh, is that
Yeah. We were told we were outside our scope, but I don't think that selectman had read the Town Managers Act recently. No, I think it would certainly be well within, and I think, we have a member of the select board here tonight for exactly that reason, so that they can hear our concerns, and address them if they would like to, and we can certainly encourage them to. But,
If we table, we're tabling the entire budget, this particular, yeah,
This particular budget, yes.
for, we don't know how long, a few days, maybe. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to make sure I'm clear on what we're talking about.
Questions from the audience? Nova?
Nova Samade, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I just would like to agree with what everyone's been saying. I, for one, am willing to buy my own trash barrels. I have no problem with that. In fact, there are some of us in town that already pay to compost, and we pay a fee to reduce the amount of waste that we make that the town has to pay for. So I don't think that we should be scared. Waste is a big issue, and we all sort of need to reduce how much we make. And so if it helps that people have to buy their own barrels to go, I can only make this much, I think that's a great thing. In fact, that was one of my questions. Do we pay by weight? Is there a flat fee for them to pick up, or do they weigh how much they pick up?
So it's the contract has a flat fee to pick up per barrel of recycling and refuse. The refuse goes to our transfer station, and we pay our disposal fee per ton on that. The town pays that. On recycling, the contractor picks up the recycling in this barrel and then puts it into the truck, and we pay a per ton recycling processing fee, less the revenue value on the recycling.
So we do pay a weight for...
Recycling and trash now, yep.
Okay, so if we were to reduce the weight, would that be reflected in next year? How would that work?
Yes, if our recycling, if trash tonnage was at 6,000 tons and it went to 5,000 tons, we would save money. We would save 1,000 times $84. On recycling, if our recycling tonnage went from 2,500 tons to 2,000 tons, we would save 400 times $125, which is the recycling processing fee.
And, sorry, one other question on the barrels. Would these work, same barrels for different contractors? Or like, if we have a contract for 5 years and we switch people, can we still use the same barrels?
Yes, the answer is yes. We've also done a RFP on barrel costs and gone through 3 companies for the barrel cost to find the price of the barrels. 3 standard companies. All the companies can use it, and they don't have a preference.
Eric, did you have a follow-up you wanted to jump in on?
Not for David.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Bates?
Thank you. Bill Bates, Precinct 4 Town Meeting Member. Through you, Mr. Chairman, is it possible, like the young lady suggested, that we could get a smaller bucket that would still work with the same truck if an elderly person decided to do that?
The answer is yes, we've considered that, and it's been recommended to us to try it this way and see if we need to add in a smaller barrel. It's possible to get a smaller refuse barrel that can be picked up by the truck. We have to be careful they blow around in the wind more, but yes, it's possible. It's been recommended to start out with this, and then if we get a demand for that, to add that to the program.
I would suggest to you that I think in my neighborhood, I'd like to be able to go around, particularly to the elderly neighbors, show them a small one and a large one and say, which one do you want? Because I think that can be huge, and I think there is a lot of people that a smaller one would work. It would save us getting ahead of ourselves and buying all the barrels. So, like I say, I'd volunteer to go through my whole neighborhood with barrels and actually show them. You can have this one or that one. Which one would you like? And I think that would be helpful.
Well, I'm just going to interject and just ask the question. How much does it weigh?
It's pretty light.
About trash.
Okay.
I'd just say, like,
I was just curious about the weight. Yeah.
I think it's more than,
I've definitely had.
Dave,
like,
you don't know the weight?
No, I think they're like 20 to 22 pounds.
Okay,
something like
thank
that.
you.
I definitely, at least in Connecticut, where we have, ours are the same. I think they have, I basically think they have at the very least, they have black barrels in the same size as blue barrels. Pretty sure that exists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you definitely do.
Yeah.
Just 2 of the 64s,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That one's heavier than the black one.
all my neighbors' trash.
Mr. Chairman, through you, there was a comment made by Mr. Landers that I want to make sure that it's accurate. He said that because of what we did last night at the budget on the school committee at $48 million, we're spending less per student than we did last year. I believe that may have something to do with funny math because of some of the funds that we are using in that budget from the COVID and everything else. And our budget went up 4.79% for the schools. So I just would like some clarity on whether we actually are spending less per student this year on this budget than we did in last fiscal year.
I want to go back. I think the number that people are referring to.
It was
it's
right there, yeah.
And just to be very clear, that number comes from the state, so neither of us can speak to the components of that. We think it's a little strange too, but that comes from the state. So the state produces the per pupil cost number, and that's where the comparison comes from.
And as some, I did 9 years on the school committee, and you get Arthur Scamus up there that's just come off of it. We spend a lot of money per student, there's no question. And when I started, it was $36 million budget. And I said I wouldn't apologize for a single dollar unless it was misspent. And in Danvers, it's not. So that having been said, I would just like to offer, as a longtime town meeting member, I don't think you're as locked in as you think you are, because I think this could be an amendment made on the floor of town meeting, particularly when we get to the Warren article and the $985,000 worth of barrels, that was, if somebody was guided correctly, we could offer an amendment that said, you know what, we want to take that $985,000 allocate it someplace else, the schools, and make up for it by putting a fee. So please don't think it's over, because we...
And I don't disagree with you, we just don't have the warrant article in front of us tonight, so it's, when we have one piece in front of us and not the other piece, it can get a little tenuous, so I completely agree with you.
Just wanted to let you know that
But
there's a town
I
meeting
do,
member
I
that
do
might be
appreciate
willing
that,
to do
and
that.
you might be, you might be hooked in to present an amendment. Mr. Bradstreet, did I see your hand up?
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I'm sympathetic, and I hope we can figure out what needs to be done and a way to do it that we can afford for the school department. Mine's just a couple of simple questions about the trash. I don't have one, but some years ago, people bought their own trash compactors. I don't have one, I don't use one, but if someone is still using it and they compact their trash, it weighs something, is it gonna fit in a barrel? Is it gonna have to be handled somewhat differently?
No, it'll fit.
Again, I'm fairly healthy, I can cut my cardboard up. Can I cut it up and put it in that barrel?
Yes.
As opposed to doing it somewhat
Yep.
differently? And the other one is, what's coming down the line? I remember a long time ago that ideas originated on the West Coast and slowly worked their way to the East Coast. As far as trash disposal or what have you, do we know what's happening on the West Coast so that we can prepare for it when it finally does reach us on the East Coast?
Space, they do
I'm
it
gonna
with
be dead, I know, but just,
space modules.
you know, what's coming down the road?
Dave, should I start talking to him about natural organic reduction in
You're
my
close.
in my industry?
You're right there. You're on the numbers.
But
Yeah, now that we've dealt with the mattress crisis, but it's the food waste is coming down that's coming down the road. I believe we got to get a hold of the type of material we're recycling in recycling markets. That's where I'd like to see emphasis put, you know, to make sure we're getting good value and that we're sorting the stuff out correctly so there's not waste when they sort it out. But from the West Coast coming across is the food waste and the organics, composting, all that. That's the heavy items that's still going to the incinerators and the landfill.
thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Eric, you wanted to follow up?
I did. I just wanted to comment. I'm in a unique situation. I might be the only one in here who already pays for trash since I live in a condo in Danvers. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, I appreciate the perspective that my colleagues have brought to the table, and as someone who already pays, you know, it's a very interesting conversation since I've been paying, you know, as long as I've been living here. So.
I own a business, so I pay Wally to take my trash away.
Mr. Chair, I move that we table this article to at least our next meeting. I'm sorry, until our first meeting of the warrant articles.
The 24th?
24th.
Not the second one.
The second meeting?
Second meeting of the warrant articles.
The 25th, 6th?
25th.
That, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is tabled,
Did you
or the
select
budget is tabled.
table to which date?
The second, the 26th. 26th.
26th.
26th.
26th.
That's the Essex Center.
Yep.
As advertised.
Let's take a 5-minute break and reconvene after that.
26 years of select board.
Okay, I vote.
One down-ish.
Welcome back, everyone. So David, you'll be coming back to us with the tax-supported budget on the 26th.
Excellent.
Thank you. So we appreciate that you'll be back. I think you were back that night anyway, but...
Okay.
From trash to sewer, page 49 in the budget book. Consistent theme, we have it's a level service budget. Part of the increase here is that we have, some of our engineers are shared across our utilities for some of the civil work that they do under Stephen King's leadership. And this is the budget where we fund our SESD assessment, as we are a member of the South Essex Sewage District. The large drop in capital outlay has everything to do with the equipment that was up for replacement this particular year. So we have a low capital outlay expense this year. And again, I would turn it over to Dave to highlight anything in the budget that he wanted to reference, and then we're happy to take questions.
Thank you, Stephen. And Mr. Chairman, the no real big changes in the salaries, although we have a number of new people adding into both water and sewer, which is good. People bringing in to get the salary back up to full speed again. On the operational costs, on the relatively small items, we've seen some changes is on our software maintenance. We continue to see costs in that as far as upgrading our software packages. And some of them is for the same things we get, like our billing software, our maintenance software. One thing Angelica's worked on with some of our other staff is changing our customer portal on both the water sewer side and the electric side. So we get a modern customer portal with graphs, and you can see your data right there, and it'll help with our leak detection program and stuff. So those costs are in here. We're excited about that. That's the biggest improvement that we've seen. And we have all that ability in our meters to get all this data and stuff. We just need to be able to get it out to our customers. And so we're excited about that. Underneath that, the 52422 HVAC maintenance, that's sharing the costs. The sewer was not paying enough for the HVAC maintenance on their buildings. You will see on the pump maintenance and pump replacements, we're seeing almost a doubling of the cost in pumps that we buy. So we go to buy a pump for a station, we're seeing about double the cost for the same pump out there. You're going to hear in the electric division with transformers, which are like triple the cost we were seeing. Here we're seeing double the cost of pumps and fittings. It's very shocking to us. The biggest number in the budget, of course, is the SESD assessment. That's the South Essex Sewer District. We're one of the 5 communities up there. We've put in this a 2.5% increase, and it looks like it's coming in, our assessment's coming in just under that 2.5%. So we'll be safe with that number in this budget. Stephen King represents us on that board, like the town manager previously said, and Stephen does a good job representing Danvers. We have a good say at that board. That's the good news. The bad news we've been talking about this week is that you've heard of East Magellan and Peabody closing down. They were a big contributor towards that facility. They had a high sewage content going there, so we're going to lose a big customer. So that's going to change the split. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on how they allocate the costs after East Magellan goes away. And we'll take other questions on the sewer budget, Stephen and I.
Paul?
I don't have any questions.
Mike?
Nope, thank you.
Ted?
All set.
Aaron?
All set.
All set. Questions from the audience? Mr. Bates?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if you could just clarify, the South Essex Sewage District is up 4.96%, but he's saying it was only a 2.5% increase, so I'm a little confused.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So it's 2.5 is the regular assessment. We also have additional debt that's being assessed from SESD this year as well. So that's why the total increase is over the 2.5%.
And for a layman, what do they do? Why are we part of that? If you just briefly tell me why we're there.
So we collect all of the sanitary sewer waste from Danvers, from your households, from your bathroom fixtures, from your kitchen fixtures. It's all collected in a separate piping from any other pipes. It's a closed system. We pump, that wastewater needs to be treated before it can be discharged. It can't, it would pollute wherever it discharged. So we need a treatment process to clean it up before we can take that water that you flush out of your house before we put it back into nature. We belong to a regional treatment plant that does a pre-treatment and then a post-pre-treatment process of that to clean it up so that that water is able to be discharged into the ocean.
Bill?
Just a simple, oh, come on. A simple question. In the past, we've been told that certain items shouldn't be disposed of through the commode. If someone were to, and I'm not suggesting it, if someone were to start disposing of their garbage, other than bones and such, in the toilet just to get it out of sight, how does that, or does it have an effect on us in the Southeast Sewerage District? I had a relative that did that, other than the bones, and they created a big problem for themselves. I don't want to create a problem for us. I'm just asking a question. It's not a suggestion for people to do it.
Can I try to answer that?
I'm glad Mr. Bradstreet's here now, but go ahead.
People more or less do that with a garbage disposal.
Right. So the garbage disposal can grind up stuff, and that does okay. The biggest hazard to our sewer system from homeowners right now is wipes. Baby wipes, adult wipes, adult diapers, all of that. People think that stuff can flush down, and you wouldn't believe the maintenance headache it's causing for us, and it's to clean that up. So it's the wipes and those, any kind of disposal diaper like that can't go down the toilets, and we need you to dispose of that through the refuse trash. Thank you, Mr. Bradstreet.
Any other questions from the audience on the sewer budget? Is there a motion?
Move the budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Next is the water budget, page 53 in your budget books. As noted in the narrative, there is a new position this year in this budget. Our water treatment plant operator made a recommendation looking at maintenance costs and overtime costs, and was able to justify that this new position would have some long-term benefits for the operation of the plant as well as overtime costs within the division. So that's really kind of the highlight here. The cost of chemicals, like everything else, has been going up and up. And so it's been a challenge budgetarily to keep up with that. But turn it over to David, and again, we'd be happy to take questions.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And that new position, has a lot of validity. It's a mechanic that can replace the parts and pieces in our treatment plant instead of trying to have an operator do it in his spare time. It's a position that we used to have and had to get rid of it years ago as far as making things more economical. And now we're going to really watch this overtime, to watch how we can drop that overtime and have, we have plans hopefully to see that overtime number go down even further than where it is right now. It seems like every budget has bad news somewhere in it. And in the water treatment, it was the chemicals. So we had water chemicals prices, and we put that out to consortium bids with big companies across the country, and we're getting hit in fiscal, right now, in fiscal 23. We'll be asking for a transfer for retained earnings as part of the warrant to cover some chemical costs that we're buying right now. These are the same costs, same chemicals in the same quantities we've been buying for 15 years, and the prices have just gone crazy. No matter what we do for bidding, we're out there in the industry talking to everybody about how to do this, how to get prices down, and there's just no way. It's regulated what chemicals we have to use, and they have to be qualified, specifically these chemicals, and it's what they cost. And that's the biggest impact on this budget is the chemicals that we see. We have one line item here, the granular activated carbon. Right now, that's level funded. We thought that was going to be okay. Now we're keeping a close eye on that for next year. We're not ready to make a change right now, but we're worried about those prices are going to increase from here. We thought we were safe on that, but we got to keep an eye on that one now also.
Paul?
I don't know if you mentioned this, David, up on, it's 52220, gas heating.
Yeah, so, I should have mentioned that. Thank you. That's the natural gas. And that number, we have a new facility up there on Folly Hill, the new water booster station, and that's going to be heated by natural gas. So that's the biggest driver on this. And this is a projected number for that natural gas that the designers told me a number to use that's in here. I'm hoping, so that's the new plan, but it seems high to me. But I'm going with the proposed number from the engineers right now. So there's a unit cost also in there where we're budgeted right now $2.50 a therm, where we're paying about $1.90 right now. So, so our unit price is a little heavy on that budget, and hopefully that building up on Folly Hill won't be as hard to heat as they're projecting.
And on 52904, contract cleaning went down,
Yes.
which is good, but I think I've noticed that in a couple of other budgets. Is there something going on?
I mentioned this up front. This was the split. So on the tax-supported budget, you saw contract cleaning go up.
Yeah.
We were overcharging water and sewer, so a little bit of that. It's one big contract, and we split it up among the different divisions.
Okay.
So that's just allocating the money correctly.
And the last one I have is 55308, which is pipe and fittings.
Yeah.
Is that one you mentioned before that's, you can't control?
Same thing as the pumps. It's
Yeah,
the unit cost. We're buying the same materials, just the prices out there in the industry.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Mike?
How's the level of the reservoir in comparison to previous years?
So right now, we're full again, and let the drought begin. So all of a sudden, you saw from the fire hazard today, like, we're starting a drought. But right now, the reservoirs are full, and so we're going to have to manage that through the years, and we're using one of our wells right now. But we need rain this spring to keep them full right through the spring.
Have we seen anything on the legislative front or the administrative front over the last year that concerns us in regards to small municipal water suppliers?
So the biggest concern we have right now is the change on the federal level in the PFAS numbers. So the PFAS, the federal EPA changed the level of PFAS way down,
Yeah, it's
almost to the
almost
detection
zero,
limit
yeah.
right now. So right now, we're okay in the pond and in well 2. However, the detection level is so low now, we can't think that we're not going to get a hit on PFAS out of that pond at some time, and we're going to need to start preparing for that. And it really looks like we're going to have difficulty. Well, we can't use well 1 without a treatment process for PFAS. So that's a big thing that concerns us right now, is how we're going to deal with PFAS in the future.
And you don't think that this is something that's being put there specifically to deal with sort of small providers like us? I'm assuming again that this is not a problem for the big players, but somebody like us who does depend to a certain extent on wells and at different times of the year.
It's wide. I think it's widespread. It's going to affect a lot of water suppliers across the country. PFAS is everywhere.
Great, thank you.
Ted?
On the chemicals, is there any, like, with commodity price changes, is there any, like, relief back in the other direction this year or no? Like the oil, I'm thinking more like the oil supply chain, petrochemicals rather,
Yeah.
or is it pretty sticky?
I thought so. In the calls we've made, I said, right now, we're getting no on that. We're going to stay where we are. We're already at these levels right now, and we don't see it going down yet.
And this is a little bit of a digression, but I talked to you about it. I should have asked you before when we were talking about trash. Do you want to talk a little bit about the soil tipping and how that's working out?
Oh, sure. As part of the solid waste, the good news is that our soil project up at the East Coast Road landfill is working well. Last year, the town authorized us borrowing $4.5 million to open up the top of one of the landfill cells, start bringing in soil from sites around Massachusetts, fill it in, create a big level area in that, and then put a solar array on top. So we have been operational all winter. We've taken in $1.7 million worth of soil so far. We're taking it in at a cost higher than what was projected. So revenues should exceed the original projections. It's going, we're in demand, and the project is going well.
Excellent. That's it. That's it for me.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
No questions.
Wally?
Good idea.
Eric?
Could you just comment on, I'm looking at several lines from 57401 down to 57803. It looks like those are benefits related. Let's see, casualty liability insurance, health and dental costs, and then Medicare, FICA, and pension reimbursements, and I think support services all have modest increases. They total about $100,000. I'm just get a general sense of what's going on there.
Yeah, so those are all the exact same costs that we see on the tax-supported budget for those items.
Okay.
And it's these pieces that have been apportioned out by our finance director to cover the employees in this division. So they're actual costs for these employees that he's apportioned out.
Thank you.
Arthur?
I'm all set.
Great. Questions from the audience? Is there a motion?
I'm motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Next is the electric budget. That starts on page 56. Newer members will notice that the formatting of this budget is different from everything else in the budget, and that is because the electric division is subject to FERC, which is the federal accounting standards. It's different than the standards that the town is subject to. So we've created sort of the summary to kind of resemble the rest, but you'll notice that it's a project-based budget as opposed to a line item budget in many cases. And I would turn it directly over to Dave to provide some highlights, and then I'm sure there'll be some questions.
The good news on our electric budget this year is finally, for the first time I can remember, we're projecting to sell more electricity next year than we did this year, which is good news. We've seen declining electric sales for a long time, and this is part of the electrification of the world and the electrification of Danvers, we hope. And we're set up to provide more electricity. It's efficient, it's clean, and we're going to be ready to provide that to the town. And as we know, as our sales go up, it helps us cover our fixed costs. So for the fixed costs, the price per unit goes down, which is great. So we see a small increase in sales, which is across the board. As far as the purchase of electricity, we just were able to do a contract to replace one of our contracts that came up that was very inexpensive for this summer, but it came in less expensive than we expected, which was good. We've also been able to pick up additional renewable contracts this year, both a wind contract and a solar contract. So we have a dashboard on where we're headed towards 2035, so we can get carbon-free and meet the state's goals. We're on track. We're ahead of the curve right now. Yes?
Perfect segue to talk, maybe for the new members, we talk for a minute about the portfolio, since you're talking about the contracts you have in place, and then we can jump back to the budget.
So Steve has put the pie chart portfolio up there. Thanks for waving the arms and stuff over there. We need like a buzzer or something.
Dave, it's our favorite slide of the year. You have to
You can't read
appreciate
anything on
his
it, but it's an
enthusiasm.
important slide.
And working with the assistance of this board, previous boards, we've got the colors right, so it's easy to understand. And it works well. But if we start with the biggest piece of the pie chart at 34.23%, that's Seabrook. So we still get a lot of power from Seabrook. It's very economical, and regardless of how you think about nuclear power, it's clean energy for us. Next to that is Millstone Nuclear. That's 8.2% of our budget. That's Millstone down in Connecticut. Coming around, when you see Stony Brook, then NextEra Rise, NextEra Bilateral, Shell Bilateral. That's our natural gas portion of the budget right there. So all those contracts have various lengths to them, but it's modern. That used to be oil and coal back in the day. Now it's natural gas that's done efficiently in those contracts. So that's our natural gas piece. And then as you come to the top of the graph, you're into right up top, it's NYPA Hydro. First Light Hydro is just to the left of that. Those are our two hydroelectric plants. Then you're into Saddleback Wind, Cantor Mountain Wind, then more hydro up in Quebec, Brown Bear right there. And then it comes across, you'll see Classico in Cherry Hill. Those are two solar arrays we have here in Danvers, up on those. Then we have a little piece of nuclear that's NextEra, that we've done that. And then 5.48% is the market. We set a policy with the Municipal Light Board on how much we want to be in the market. chasing the market each month. Our policy is to be less than 10% in the market. So we only want to leave 10% up to chance. And so far, we've done very well with that. This winter, we did extremely well with that. And actually, it looks like we're heading towards a rate decrease in June, which is fantastic. So we did have to have an increase in January, expecting some costs, the mild winter, and also this contract that we got this summer led us to, looks like the rate's going to be able to drop. And so we're excited about that.
And in the footnotes, you might mention, I don't know if you can read from the back, but we have the Smith, Highland, and high school solar projects coming online, projected this year, and then in 2 years we have the landfill. So the local solar piece will start to grow as some of these additional projects come online.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, these right down here, like Steve said, there's the Smith, Highland High School solars. This is the landfill, and then 3 contracts which we're actively pursuing right now is the Chariot Solar, Broadleaf Solar, and the Western Maine Wind. So what we're doing is we're out in the market looking at those renewable contracts that are cost effective. Because we have some time before the 2035, we can be selective, pick the ones that are at a good rate, that are economical, rather than just grab any one that's available to us. Excellent, thank you, Steve. Any questions on the portfolio, Mr. Chairman? Questions?
Yeah, can we get a copy of that? I don't, is it in the book? And I
So
missed it?
historically, it's been in the supplemental information, but I don't think it made it this year.
Can I just ask one, just because I don't know, I'm sure Mike knows this, but can you explain to me the market thing? How does the market thing work? Like, what are you doing, what are you playing in the market?
You want to explain it, or like?
So basically, let's see if I can get it right. Basically, what happens is that we get into points where our use is so high that we basically are exposed to be able to have to bring in more power than we've basically contracted for via our other sources. It is a little bit difficult because it's not like, as you look on the wire, the inside the wire looks like that. Obviously, it's all coming from a head end. But we get to that point, and when we get to that point, now we have to these market rates kick in, and those market rates can be extraordinarily higher. In the past, we've actually, in order to try to avoid this, have gone out and rented oil-based generators, diesel generators, in the summer, the worst parts of the summer, to try to be able to produce a substantial amount of power at the key times so that we didn't have to go into the market at that point, at least as substantially as we had. But it's basically when we're using too much power, and we're one of those times, and all these other contracts won't hit it, we've got to go into that market piece, and it's very expensive.
In the backup for that is tomorrow there is a commodity price for electricity. Say it's $80 a megawatt. So if I need an extra megawatt of electricity tomorrow, I'm paying $80 for that megawatt. I have contracts up here where it's only $60 a megawatt. So tomorrow the market's not good for us because the market price is $80 a megawatt. Other times the market could be $40 a megawatt. We're paying $60, however, the market's $40. On that day, it's a good day. But you have to average it out over the year because the market price changes every day.
Okay, no, thanks, I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Do you have the slide that shows where we are in relationship to the big providers and the other community-based ones, the one that we get every month?
So each month we provide the municipal light board with a graph. When we set the purchase power cost portion of the budget, we provide them with a graph that shows how we compare to the other towns and the investor-owned utilities in the area.
Just let them know that you don't have to.
I can pass it across the board.
But just to show them where we are, especially in relationship to the investor-based, I think it's really to me that's always the big one for the public, is to realize what a value they get.
It's kind of amazing, actually.
Yeah, it's and when you add to that the fact that you're paying that substantially less on a monthly basis, and our service is so much better than what you would expect out of the investors, it makes we always glow about the library, and deservedly so. frankly, Dave should get the same type of glowing response that the library director gets as it relates to the electric.
There's a lot of people behind Dave. It's not just Dave.
No, well, I know that,
So do
but,
you want me to give him more money?
Yeah.
no, doesn't need any more money. But that just, obviously, which segues into the fact that I'm on the electric light board, and so I will again abstain from voting from this, for this.
So I was just gonna ask, like, Arthur kind of asked on it. So the fact that we were only 10% exposure to market, I know that the prices in Europe were bananas this year in the wintertime, and they were really only saved because they had a warm winter, but that drove up LNG prices, and that affected a lot of power generation and heating generation on the East Coast. Do you know how much we save than folks that opt to take more of like a market-based approach? Because I think it deserves to be celebrated or noted that, like, the strategy we have of locking in a lot of our power and not taking exposure to the market rate, given what's happened in energy markets in the last 2 years, is a very strong one.
Yeah, so it's the Nextera bilateral 2024 right there. That's the piece that came up, you see 224, that is, Clint's gonna kill me. It's a piece like that. It's one of those pieces over there that was up in, we started to go out in the market for that piece in November, right when Europe was having the natural gas, the prices through the roof. We put everything on the back burner and said, we're gonna wait and let this settle and see what happens this winter. We waited until March, after we had gone through the winter. Then we were back out in the market, and it was a 40% reduction. Yeah. And that's what we locked in July, for July. So that's the kind of thing we have to be careful. We have others, experts out there in the field helping us with that to make those decisions on when we're going to lock in.
That's really it. I would echo what everybody else said. Like, over my cold dead body, would I let us sell our utility to a publicly held company? There's no chance in hell.
But when he says Clint, that is the one who actually does everything. It's not Dave.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Ed, you got to keep passing that down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
That way.
Oh, that way.
Oh, back to the budget. So so we see sales are up, so that means revenues are up. Power cost, the purchase power, which is line 555, so that you will see an increase, because if we have more power, it is going to cost more to buy it. However, then the rest of our operational costs are relatively stable. We're back to normal, finally, that we've said this year, after we kind of had a couple years during COVID where we weren't doing the construction, we weren't doing the projects staff. Now we're back to full speed on the staff, and we have seen an increase in the work we're doing for others. When someone wants to hook up, we'll do the power for them, both us and using contractors, and we charge them for that. It's our jobbing services. We do the work, we charge it, and do that billing. It's another way, we generate revenue. We do have a couple big projects coming, one of which you'll see in the warrant articles is for the new substation down behind Liberty Tree Mall, adjacent to the Verizon maintenance shop right there. That's our Northland substation. It's been a while since we've done one of those, but it's great. We've worked with the mall to do a land swap to be able to build the new one right next to the old one, so we keep the old transformer in use while we build the new one right next door to it. We'll see that going up. In addition, we have a great capital plan, which is funded through this budget, which is going all around town. You'll see new poles going in, replacement of the old utility lines, trying to make the system as durable as possible. The biggest
will that improve Eric's sight lines as he pulls out onto, I think that was your question at one
That was
point.
my question, yeah. I've been watching it. It's getting better. I just have a totally different issue, which David is aware of, and that's just the lighting, which we do not control on Constitution, is horrendous. You talk about a safety hazard, but anyway, I could go on.
Yeah, private roads, constitutional, private roads, private lighting back there. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
So biggest challenge in the electric division is purchasing the smaller transformers that you have around businesses, you're out on the street hanging from the poles. They're in tremendous short supply. Cost is through the roof. You can't get them. We just had a shipment of transformers come. We had 3 of them come from Colombia. and we had videos of them going on the ship. But that's the biggest challenge of staff. And we have new projects coming in that request transformers that we can't even get, and that's really affecting the division right now. But working through that. And we'll take other questions.
Arthur?
No, not really. I mean, when I compare what I get for service and the cost in Danvers as to what I get for service and the cost in Topsfield with National Grid, it's all good to me. I'm happy with it.
Eric?
Two questions. One, has it been a year or two since the use charge went in, and how's that gone?
So it's been 2 years now since it went in. Some of the groundswell has died down. It pops up every once in a while. We still haven't adjusted it. So when the board originally set it, they set it at about 28%, I think, of what the real value should have been. So relatively low. We've left it there for now to let people get used to it. And so it's there. The board's discussed it each year. You know, should it come up to what the actual cost is? And at the point where we get to a lot of people have more renewables and people are using less electricity, we may have to look at putting a more realistic fee on that. The only other new thing on rates that we're looking at is time of use rates. Electricity costs us less at night than it does during the day. We're trying to reduce our peak during the day because we get charged on peaks. So we're working on a program with municipal light boards for people with electric vehicles to charge them at night rather than during the day. And if they charge them at night, we'll charge them a different rate than if they charge them during the day. So that's on the docket to discuss this June also.
Would that just be driven by like the charge? How would you know that the electricity is being used to charge the car?
We can read the profile right off their meter. The meter profile shows that when you charge your car. And when you plug it in, it's a smart device. It'll wait to charge the car until the night. And we can see the profile.
What a perfect segue for my next question. My next question is, it may be more of a town manager question, and that's about fleet goals. Because
Yeah.
we've talked about this, every year, to eliminate us even having this conversation, something akin to, California, we will do this by then would be helpful. And so I don't know if we have any fleet goals that you want to make a big announcement about?
Well, so we don't really want to commit to a fleet goal yet because we deal with reality. We're still really at the infancy of electric vehicles and the whole charging thing. And so we don't want to jump into it with 2 feet right now, with both feet. However, what we've talked about, we have an electric efficiency program in the electric budget. We want to encourage enhancing the municipal fleet. So we're going to come up with a formula for the energy efficiency program. Here's the benefit to Danvers if we start electrifying the fleet. So we can come up with a formula based on the performance of any municipal vehicle and augment that price and come up with that. So the electric division is encouraging all the other departments to purchase electric vehicles. We're going to participate in the chief's lightning purchase, I believe. So that, and that's the start of this formula that we're going to come up with, so we can kind of promote it across the town. The other thing is we looked at the buses this year. We wanted to do the buses, and the $150,000 bus was $300,000 to buy an electric bus, which we thought we were going to get a grant for, and we were all in. If we get the grant, we're in, we're going to do it. We didn't get the grant. It didn't even come close. So that's, right now, where an electric bus is over $300,000 versus $100,000, to us, it doesn't make sense yet to do that. When the prices get closer, we'll jump right in. That's what we're thinking anyways.
It would be nice if, I think, in the budget book, if there were just a blanket statement on the current thinking on electrification of vehicles, because then it'll eliminate half the questions that I have, trying to go and see, trying to count how many vehicles we have, and I just don't want to go through department and ask that particular question because it comes up every year. Since we sell energy, we sell electricity, let's buy from it. It would be helpful to just say, here is the latest thinking. We're going after every grant, and if we get them, we get them. If not, the time is not right, we will continue to reassess. If that were, in a section, that would be, then I won't ask you this question again next year.
We'll have to think how to get that in a statement, right? And
Yeah, just a position. This is where we are currently, because it comes up every year, and it just feels pestering to bring it up, when we know it's coming.
Right. And I do need to encourage everybody to look at the rebate program. Jump on the website and look
Absolutely.
at it. We've expanded the whole rebate program to, if you buy an electric lawnmower, there's a rebate there. Electric chainsaw, there's a rebate. And one of the big changes to the rebate is on the heat pumps.
Yep.
And getting our heat pump rebates up there. So we've changed that whole program, and keep watching it, because those rebates, they're getting bigger, they're getting more beneficial to the customer, because we're getting the benefit back with electrification. Thank you for that.
I just
Do that.
appreciate the great job that you all do, similar to what Arthur said.
Walter?
I'm good.
No questions.
Good.
No, I'm good.
Mike? Paul?
When we go to these electric vehicles.
Yep.
You just talked about a school bus, I guess. How large, how large, how big a vehicle do you anticipate in the future that 15, 20 years down the road, maybe 30, will be able to purchase? I mean, is this something that will handle your trucks, your plows, or is that really just not figured out yet at this point?
Well, it's not big vehicles, it's what is the vehicle doing that's the issue. So a school bus it drives at a certain speed with a certain number of students, we can do that. Whereas if I had a pickup truck, that suddenly I'm driving that pickup truck around and it's great, that's electric, till I hook a trailer to the back. Now my range just got cut in half by hooking that trailer, or if I start plowing snow with that truck, now my range just got cut by probably 60% because now I'm plowing snow. It's a different use. That's a ways away from being able to get the work vehicles that are cost effective. There are many just giant construction equipment that's electric, but the cost is just astronomical. It's things that work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Those things are electrified. So that's going to take a while, but the ones that have standard use, those are coming regardless of the size. Delivery vehicles around town, you're going to see all those going to electric.
Right. When we purchase the vehicles, as we are right now, regardless of what department, and we charge them, okay, we pay for that.
Yep.
The town is paying you, or the town, the electric department, correct?
Correct. Yep.
So
Town
it's-
pays an electric bill. Yep.
So instead of buying diesel fuel, gas, it's just an upfront payment, we lose it, we're giving back to the town.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay, and the last thing I had, I think I saw this, was the pilot this year, 1.4 million?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the audience? Mr. Bates?
Solar energy, do you want us putting solar panels on our roof? And more directly, I know in my neighborhood, St. John's Prep has a huge solar array right down from the banking from my home. Do we buy power from them when they produce too much? Two questions.
So when you put power at your home or at your business, if you're putting solar panels that are below a certain threshold, then you use all the power. And when you get above a certain threshold, especially above your use, then you would sell power to us. The prep system right there, they're using that. We do not have a purchase power agreement. It's behind the meter. They're getting the benefit of that. Just like any resident that they get the most of the benefit from their system. The one at Cherry Hill, the one at Danvers Indoor Sports, and a new one that's going in at Danvers White Yacht Club, those are all bigger systems above the thresholds where we'll buy all the power and pay them under a purchase power agreement. We'll buy it all. On a residential one, we still have the net metering program for the residents, so that if a resident does produce some extra, we will buy that from you at a wholesale rate now, but we'll buy that power at a wholesale rate and credit your account for that.
That is, I mean, I will say this, that's probably one of the reasons, is a good segue just back into why we felt it was really important to go with that sort of that per player cost.
Right.
Was because, you know, we have a budget, if you look at that, those other expenses of roughly $14 million, those are there regardless of whether people purchase any power or don't purchase power. And so basically that cost that we sent on, that's when he says 28% of that, that's a very small portion of that operating budget that it goes out regardless if you buy, a kilowatt or a gazillion kilowatts. And so basically, those expenses need to be picked up, and that's what we tried to do with that small fee, was to, and unfortunately, the people who it probably has the greatest effect upon, which are people who have very low bills, are the people who we needed to collect it from the most, because they're not really paying their way, so to speak. But again, that was 2 years ago, but certainly it was at a very, very low percentage compared to what the actual, trying to spread that $14 million out over all our customers and make it accordingly would be a significantly larger amount to do that, so.
Great. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the last item tonight is capital outlay. That's on page 94 of your budget books in the capital section. On that note, I would point out the gentleman in the back, Nicholas Navin. He's our assistant treasurer collector, and he compiled the capital plan this year. So and he's been here every night this week, so.
We were all wondering who that guy was. So,
The gentleman drinking more water than we have in our permit in the back is Nicholas Navin. In terms of the slide, it's a few moving pieces, so I'll walk through it quickly, and then if there's questions on the equipment itself, David's available. The sewer, $16,000, we already voted as part of the sewer budget. The school's working bottom from up. The school's $150,000 is for 2 vans. Again, that's a warrant article. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. The action tonight we're looking for is on the general fund portion, $697,684. That's made up of the police vehicles, which the chief touched on a little bit earlier, and the Public Works tax supported, which includes a couple pieces of heavy equipment and some smaller vehicles. With that, we'll take any questions.
Paul?
The school vans too, purpose, are they for teams or we talked about sped, they're not sped related, are they?
So they can be used for sped, yes, they
Yeah.
can be, and small groups going around. They're the 14 passenger vans.
Okay, all right, and I think there was the dump truck, is that what that is?
Yes, sir. Yep, from the street.
What's the life expectancy of that?
So we say a minimum 12, we're really getting 15 years out of them.
That's it for me, thank you.
Mike?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Going to the school passenger vans too, we heard an awful lot about transportation expenses last night, and I know you also run land use and community services, I think?
No.
No? You
Nope.
don't? Oh, okay. Well, anyway,
Come and pick on him tomorrow.
what can, well, I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with the challenges they're having.
Yeah.
What can we do as a town to bring some of that in-house? And would that reside under your purview?
So we help them buy the vehicles and maintain the vehicles.
Yep.
So those vans at $75,000, that number has gone through the roof. And so what I've driven around, looked at, and want to talk to the school administration about, is there another vehicle that can do part of that is less expensive than $75,000?
Are these just kind of replenishing, or are these incremental?
Yeah, they're replacing ones that are
We're just
worn out.
this is just holding the status quo.
Yeah, so I want to talk to the school folks about what is the use of these, how many students going in, and they have certain codes they have to meet because they are a school bus. There's a RA 42 code or whatever that they have to meet. But is there another vehicle that's less expensive? It's like a minivan comes to mind. Is there a certain minivan that can be equipped to do this? We're going to meet with the school and look at that before we buy these two.
And Dave, the conversation last night was the schools were describing a similar challenge that senior center is having in terms of finding qualified drivers who are willing to drive these vehicles for the rates. I mean, we've increased the rates and still have a hard time finding these drivers, and so that was I think what
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we can look at the number of students they're piling in, because if they're not filling 14 students in,
Right.
if we buy a smaller vehicle then maybe it's easier to drive. So we want to open up that dialogue with them. and help them along, even though we're limited out on the market. But hopefully things are going to get better on the availability of vehicles.
That's it for me.
Aaron?
I'm good.
Wally?
No, I'm good.
Eric?
These are 7D vehicles, not CDL?
Correct. Yep. 70th. Is that it? Thank you.
That's it.
Arthur?
All set?
Anything from the audience? Is there a motion?
Move the budget.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We return again tomorrow night here at 7 o'clock.
Same bad time.
For mostly land use and community services is the bulk of that. And see you all then.
All right.
Forget that. Andrew.